The gymnasium went dead silent as Emma Chen's knee connected with Sergeant Reeves's jaw. 240 pounds of muscle collapsed like a demolished building. Blood hit the mat. Someone screamed. The cute recruit they'd been mocking for 8 weeks straight now stood over 6 unconscious Marines, her hands still raised, breathing steady. No celebration, no emotion, just cold professional silence, the kind of silence that comes before everything changes. This wasn't supposed to happen. The 5'2" woman they called Barbie wasn't supposed to destroy the base's toughest fighters in under 2 minutes, but she just had. And now someone had to explain why. Before we begin this story, please subscribe to our channel and stay with us until the end. Comment below with your city so we can see how far this story travels around the world. Now, let's begin. 8 weeks earlier, Emma Chen's boots hit the California dirt at 05:30 hours on a Monday morning that would define the next 2 months of her life. Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton stretched out before her like a concrete and dust-colored promise of pain. She'd seen worse, done worse, but nobody here knew that, and she intended to keep it that way. Jesus Christ, did they start recruiting from high schools now? The voice belonged to Sergeant Marcus Reeves, and it carried across the formation area like a foghorn. 6'3", 240 pounds, neck like a fire hydrant. He looked at Emma the way someone might look at a lost puppy that had wandered onto a highway. Emma said nothing. Just stood at attention, her 118-pound frame dwarfed by the men around her. "I'm serious," Reeves continued, walking closer. "Someone check her ID. She looks like she should be studying for SATs, not attempting Marine training." Laughter rippled through the formation. 53 male Marines. 4 other females, none of whom made eye contact with Emma. She'd seen this movie before. Different theater, same script. Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres, a weathered veteran with 30 years of scars and stories, stepped forward. "That's enough, Sergeant Reeves. Fall in." But the damage was done. Emma had been marked, labeled, dismissed, exactly as planned. What none of them knew, what none of them could know, was that Emma Chen had spent the last 4 years in places that didn't officially exist, doing things that would never appear in any service record. Naval Special Warfare Development Group. SEAL Team 6. The unit so classified that even its name was a lie. She'd been a support operative, which meant the SEALs treated her like one of their own. Trained her, pushed her, broke her down, and rebuilt her into something that could survive in rooms where survival wasn't guaranteed. Then came Kabul. The mission. The choice. The teammate who didn't come home. Emma pushed the memory down like she'd been trained to do. Focus on the present. The mission now was different. Start her career through traditional channels, prove she could still do this, and maybe, just maybe, outrun the guilt that followed her like a shadow. Cute recruit. The nickname started that first day and spread like wildfire. By week 2, even the drill instructors were using it. Emma heard it whispered during formations, shouted across the obstacle course, muttered in the chow hall. She absorbed every insult, like body armor absorbing rounds, letting them hit but never penetrate. The physical training was brutal, designed to break the weak and harden the strong. Emma deliberately underperformed. Not enough to fail, but enough to seem like she was barely surviving. During the obstacle course, she struggled over walls that she could have scaled in seconds. During runs, she fell to the back of the pack, her legs capable of so much more, but holding back, always holding back. "Pick it up, Chen," Corporal Martinez shouted as Emma struggled through pull-ups. "My grandmother moves faster than you." Martinez was Reeves's right hand. 28 years old, former Golden Gloves boxer, prison tattoos barely hidden under his sleeves. He'd made it his personal mission to ensure Emma knew she didn't belong. "Yes, Corporal," Emma gasped, dropping from the bar after 8 pull-ups. She could do 50 without breaking a sweat, but nobody needed to know that yet. The other female Marines kept their distance. Emma understood why. Emma understood. In an environment where women were already fighting for respect, association with the weakest link was social suicide. She didn't blame them. She'd done the same thing herself once, back before she learned that isolation was sometimes the strongest position. Week 3 brought hand-to-hand combat basics. Emma watched carefully as Sergeant Davis, the combat instructor, demonstrated fundamental strikes and defensive positions. He was competent, she noted. Solid fundamentals, but nothing compared to what she'd learned from Master Chief Hernandez the SEAL, who'd taught her that in real combat, there were no rules, only survivors and casualties. "Partner up," Davis ordered. "Chen, you're with Private Webster." Webster was fine. Average height, average build, average skills. He handled Emma carefully during drills like she was made of glass. She played along, letting him feel strong and capable while she memorized his patterns. Left jab telegraphed by shoulder dip. Right cross always followed by the same footwork. Poor balance when throwing kicks. She filed it all away. But it was after hours when Emma's real training happened. While her barracks mates slept, she slipped outside to an empty corner of the base. There, in the darkness lit only by distant floodlights, she ran through kata forms that combined karate, Krav Maga, and classified SEAL techniques. Her hands flew through combinations that could disable a man 3 times her size. Her feet traced patterns on the dirt that represented years of muscle memory. This was who she really was. This was what they couldn't see. "You move like a ghost." Emma spun, dropping into a defensive crouch before she recognized the voice. Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres stood 20 feet away, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "Master Gunny." Emma straightened quickly. "I was just maintaining skills you're not supposed to have." Torres walked closer, his limp from an old combat wound barely noticeable. "I've been watching you, Chen. The way you move during drills. Too controlled. Too aware. That's not someone learning to fight. That's someone pretending not to know how." Emma said nothing. Confirming or denying would both be admissions. Torres pulled an envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. "I made some calls, asked some questions to some people who officially don't exist. Funny thing, I couldn't find any record of an Emma Chen serving with Naval Special Warfare. But I did talk to a Master Chief who got real quiet when I mentioned your name, then told me to stop asking questions." Emma's heart hammered. Her cover was supposed to be airtight. Someone had talked. Someone who shouldn't have. "I don't know what you're doing here," Torres continued quietly. "And I'm not going to push, but I've been training Marines for 3 decades and I can smell a wolf in sheep's clothing. Whatever game you're playing, be careful. Reeves and his crew aren't just assholes, they're dangerous, and they've decided you're their favorite target." He walked away before Emma could respond, leaving her standing alone in the darkness with questions burning in her mind. Who had Torres talked to? How much did he know? And more importantly, who else might figure it out? Week 4 brought the first real escalation. Emma returned to her footlocker to find her uniform shredded. Every piece. Dress Blue's utilities PT gear all destroyed with knife cuts so precise they could only have been deliberate. Looking for something cute, recruit. Reeves leaned against the barracks doorframe, grinning. 4 Marines stood behind him. Martinez, Jackson, Williams, and Thompson. The crew. The enforcers. The ones who made life hell for anyone they decided didn't belong. Emma kept her expression neutral. "My uniforms were damaged. I'll need to file a report." "Damaged?" Reeves laughed. "That's a shame. Guess you'll have to explain to Lieutenant Drayson why you're unable to maintain your gear. Might even be grounds for disciplinary action. Maybe even discharge." He wanted her to react, to cry or rage or show fear. Emma did none of those things. She simply looked at him with the same calm expression she'd worn in Kabul when the bullets started flying and people started dying. Something in that look made Reeves's smile falter. Just for a second. Just long enough for Emma to see that underneath all that muscle and bravado, he was just another bully who'd never faced real consequences. "I'll get new uniforms," Emma said quietly. "Is there anything else, Sergeant?" The moment passed. Reeves's grin returned. "Just don't expect anyone to help you. You're on your own here, sweetheart." After they left, Emma checked her footlocker more carefully. The uniforms were the obvious vandalism meant to be found. But there was something else. A note tucked beneath the remains of her dress blues written in block letters, "I know what you are. Prove it or quit pretending." And Emma read it 3 times before burning it in the bathroom sink. Someone knew. Not just suspected like Torres knew. That changed everything. Week 5 brought more incidents. Emma's rifle disappeared before a qualification range, forcing her to borrow equipment and miss crucial familiarization time. Her canteen was filled with salt water before a 20-mile march. Her boots went missing the night before a full gear inspection. Each incident was carefully calibrated to cause maximum disruption without being easily traced. But Emma adapted. She maintained duplicate gear in a hidden location off base. She started checking everything 3 times before formations. She documented every incident with photos and written notes, building a case file that would make any NCIS investigator proud. Because that's what her SEAL training had taught her in hostile territory intelligence gathering was survival. And this base had definitely become hostile territory. The other Marines noticed. Some pitied her. Most ignored her. A few, like Private First Class Sarah Kim, one of the other female Marines, seemed torn between sympathy and self-preservation. "I'm sorry," Kim whispered to Emma one evening in the chow hall, "about what they're doing to you. But if I say anything, I understand." Emma cut her off gently. "Don't worry about it." Kim nodded relieved and returned to her own table where the other females sat in their own protective cluster. Emma ate alone as usual, watching the dynamics play out around her. Reeves and his crew dominated the center tables, loud and confident. The officers sat separate, maintaining professional distance. Torres sat alone too, his weathered face thoughtful as he occasionally glanced Emma's way. That night Emma made a decision. She activated a phone she'd kept hidden, a secure device from her old life. One call. One text message to a number that belonged to Commander James Hawthorne, her former SEAL team leader. "Need witness. Camp Pendleton. Friday 1400. Bring credentials. E." The response came 30 seconds later. Confirmed. Ura Kiddo. Week 6 arrived with an announcement that changed everything. Lieutenant Drayson, the training officer who'd been conspicuously absent during most of Emma's harassment, stood before the assembled company during morning formation. "Marines, in 2 weeks, we will conduct hand-to-hand combat qualifications. All personnel will be evaluated on technical proficiency and practical application. Sparring matches will be randomly assigned." His eyes found Emma in the formation. "Everyone participates. No exceptions." The way he said it made Emma's instincts scream. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. After formation, Emma lingered near the admin building, waiting. 20 minutes later, she watched as Reeves entered through a side door, followed by Drayson. They were in there for 15 minutes. When they emerged, both were smiling. Emma took photos from a distance, added them to her growing file. Whatever was happening, it went beyond simple harassment. This was institutional, orchestrated, and that meant it was bigger than just her. That night, alone in the darkness of her secret training spot, Emma ran through combat scenarios. Not the basic techniques they were teaching in class. Real scenarios. Multiple opponents. No rules. Survive at all costs. Her body moved through sequences that had kept her alive in places where mistakes meant death. Each strike was precise, each movement economical. This was who she really was, not the struggling recruit they saw during the day, but the weapon they'd forged in the shadows. "You're going to do it, aren't you?" Torres' voice didn't startle her this time. She'd heard him approaching 30 seconds ago. "Do what Master Gunny. Whatever it is you're planning." He moved closer, his expression serious. "I've seen that look before, usually right before someone does something that either wins medals or court-martials." Emma stopped moving, turned to face him fully. "They're setting me up. Drayson and Reeves, this random sparring assignment. It's not random." "I know," Torres said simply. "Drayson's dirty. Has been for 2 years, but nobody can prove it. Word is he's running something on the side. Performance enhancers may be worse. Reeves and his crew are customers. They were already assholes, but the juice makes them worse. More aggressive, less controlled." "You knew this and didn't report it." "I've tried. 3 times. Each time my complaints got buried. Drayson has connections higher up the chain. Someone's protecting him." Torres pulled out his own phone, showed Emma photos. "But I've been documenting everything, waiting for the right moment, the right leverage." Emma looked at the photos. Clear evidence of Reeves and others meeting with known suppliers, financial records, testimony from other Marines who'd quit rather than participate. It was enough to launch an investigation, maybe even enough to prosecute. "Why are you showing me this?" Emma asked. "Because you're going to be the spark that lights this whole thing on fire. I can feel it, and when it happens I want to make sure the right people burn." He pocketed his phone. "But Chen, whatever you're about to do, make it count. Because they're not planning to just embarrass you. They're planning to hurt you bad enough that you can't continue training." Medical discharge. It's how they've eliminated problems before. He left her with that knowledge hanging in the air like smoke. Week 7 crawled by with mounting tension. The sparring matches were all anyone talked about. Bets were being placed. Odds were being calculated. Emma heard herself mentioned frequently always as the longest shot, always as the guaranteed loser. She used the week to gather final intelligence, watched training videos of each member of Reeves's crew, identified their patterns, their weaknesses, their psychological triggers. Martinez telegraphed every combination with his eyes. Jackson had weak ankle stability from an old injury. Williams relied entirely on strength with zero technical skill. Thompson was actually trained in MMA, but he was cocky, always assuming his technique was superior. And Reeves. Reeves was the easiest to read of all. He was a bully who'd never been seriously challenged. His entire identity was built on physical dominance. He'd never learned to fight someone who didn't fear him. On Thursday night, Emma received another anonymous note. "Tomorrow, time to fish or cut bait. They plan to destroy you. Show them who you really are." She burned this one too, but this time she smiled as she watched it turn to ash. Friday morning arrived with California sunshine and the kind of heat that made uniforms stick to skin. The entire company assembled in the main gymnasium, a massive space with padded mats covering the floor and bleachers full of Marines eager for entertainment. Emma stood in formation, breathing slowly, centering herself the way Master Chief Hernandez had taught her. "Combat isn't about being fearless," he'd said once. "It's about controlling your fear so precisely that it becomes fuel instead of hindrance." Lieutenant Drayson stepped to the center of the mat clipboard in hand. "Today's qualifications will test your combat readiness. Each Marine will demonstrate basic techniques followed by live sparring matches against randomly selected opponents." His smile was predatory. "Let's begin." The first matches were predictable. Bigger Marines dominated smaller ones. Technical skill mattered, but not as much as raw strength and aggression. The crowd cheered and jeered in equal measure. Then Drayson called Emma's name. "Private First Class Chen Center Matt." The gymnasium went quiet. Everyone knew what was coming. The cute recruit was about to get destroyed, and they all had front row seats. Emma walked to the center with the same calm expression she'd worn for 8 weeks. No anxiety, no fear, just professional focus. "Your opponent," Drayson said, drawing out the moment for maximum effect. "Sergeant Marcus Reeves." The crowd erupted. Reeves stood grinning like a shark, bumping fists with his crew. 240 pounds of muscle and malice, enhanced by whatever chemicals Drayson had been feeding him, ready to make an example out of the woman who'd dared to invade his space. As Reeves walked toward the mat, Emma noticed Commander Hawthorne slip into the gymnasium through the back entrance. With him came a rear admiral she didn't recognize, along with 2 civilians in suits that screamed federal agents. Torres had seen them too, and his slight nod confirmed what Emma already knew. The cavalry had arrived. Time to give them a show. "Touch gloves," Drayson ordered, barely hiding his anticipation. Reeves tapped Emma's gloves dismissively, already looking past her toward his celebration. Emma looked up at him, and for the first time in 8 weeks, let him see the real her. Not the struggling recruit, not the cute girl who didn't belong, but the operator who'd survived missions in 3 countries, who'd been trained by the best warriors in the world, who'd made the hardest choice of her life and was still standing. Reeves saw it. His grin faltered. Just for a second. The whistle blew, and everything changed. Reeves charged forward like a freight train with a personal grudge. His right fist came around in a haymaker that could have taken Emma's head clean off her shoulders. She'd seen the punch coming 3 seconds before he threw it. Read it in the shift of his weight. The tension in his shoulder, the rage in his eyes. Emma slipped left. Not dramatically. Just enough. Reeves's fist cut through empty air where her face had been, and the momentum carried him forward, off balance, exposed. Her right hand shot up in a compact uppercut that caught him directly under the jaw. The impact made a sound like a baseball bat hitting a side of beef. Reeves's head snapped back, his eyes went unfocused, and Emma followed with a left hook to his liver that made him bend forward involuntarily. Then her knee came up. The crack echoed through the gymnasium like a gunshot. Reeves's nose exploded in a spray of blood. His knees buckled. All 240 pounds of him collapsed onto the mat, face first, completely unconscious, before he hit the ground. Silence. Absolute silence. Emma stood over him, hands still raised, breathing steady. 7 seconds. The entire fight had lasted 7 seconds. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered from the bleachers. Drayson stood frozen, his clipboard hanging limply in his hand. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't anywhere close to what was supposed to happen. The medical staff rushed forward to check on Reeves. Emma stepped back, lowered her hands, and waited. Her expression hadn't changed, calm, professional, almost bored, like she'd just completed a routine training exercise rather than knocked out the base's most feared brawler in less time than it took to sneeze. "Private Chen," Drayson's voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat, tried again. "Return to formation." "Sir, I believe you said there would be multiple matches today." Emma's voice carried across the silent gymnasium. "I'm ready to continue." Drayson's face went red. "That won't be, Lieutenant." Commander Hawthorne's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He walked down from the bleachers, the rear admiral beside him. "I believe the private made a valid point. Your evaluation criteria specified multiple opponents to test combat readiness under fatigue conditions. Seems like she's earned the right to complete the full assessment." Drayson's eyes darted between Hawthorne the admiral and the 2 suits who were now filming everything with professional-grade equipment. His trap had just become his cage. "Of course, Commander." Drayson's smile looked like it hurt. "Corporal Martinez, center mat." Martinez had watched his boss get demolished. Now he approached the mat like a man walking toward a firing squad. But pride and whatever Drayson had pumped into his system pushed him forward. He couldn't show fear. Not in front of the entire company. "I know your record," Martinez said quietly as they touched gloves. "Golden Gloves 2018. 17 wins, 2 losses. Both by decision. You've never been knocked out." Martinez's eyes widened. "How do you?" The whistle blew. Martinez came in cautious hands, high footwork, textbook perfect. Left jab to test distance. Emma slipped it. Another jab. She parried. Martinez threw a 1-2 combination jab cross, the same combination he'd thrown in every fight since he was 16. Emma had watched footage of 12 of his matches over the past week. She knew this combination better than he did. She stepped inside his cross, too close for him to generate power. Her elbow drove upward into his solar plexus, the cluster of nerves that controls the diaphragm. Martinez's breath exploded out of him. His hands dropped instinctively to protect his body. Fatal mistake. Emma's right hand came over the top in a hammer fist that caught him behind the ear. Martinez's legs turned to rubber. He staggered sideways, trying to clinch, but Emma was already moving. She grabbed his extended arm, dropped her hips, and executed a textbook judo throw that sent him crashing to the mat. Before he could scramble up, she had his arm extended in an arm bar. The joint locked. One more inch of pressure, and his elbow would snap like dry kindling. Martinez tapped frantically against the mat. "Out! Out! I'm out!" Emma released immediately and stood. 14 seconds. The gymnasium wasn't silent anymore. Marines were on their feet, shouting, some in disbelief, some in amazement. The betting odds were being frantically recalculated. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a fluke. The cute recruit was systematically destroying trained fighters. "Private Jackson center mat." Drayson's voice had lost all its confidence. He looked like a man watching his world collapse in real time. Jackson was the wrestler. 6'4", 215 pounds, 3-time state champion in Montana. He'd been drilling takedowns since he could walk. His game plan was simple: get her to the ground where size and strength mattered most. "You're good," Jackson said as they faced each other. "I'll give you that. But wrestling's different. It's not about speed or tricks. It's about physics and leverage. And I've got both." "You've also got a weak left ankle," Emma replied calmly. "Sprained it sophomore year, never healed right. You compensate by shifting your weight distribution, which telegraphs your shot direction, by 0.3 seconds. Jackson's face went pale. "How the hell?" He shot for a double-leg takedown, diving low, trying to grab both her legs. Emma sprawled, shooting her legs back and dropping her weights down. Her forearm came down hard across the back of his neck, a sprawl and brawl technique that Master Chief Hernandez had taught her in a windowless room in Virginia. Jackson face-planted into the mat. Emma immediately took his back, wrapped her arms around his neck, and locked in a rear-naked choke. Her legs wrapped around his torso in a body triangle, making escape impossible. Jackson tried to stand. Emma rode him like a backpack. He tried to roll. She rolled with him, maintaining perfect position. His face started turning red as his air supply was cut off. 10 seconds later, his hand slapped the mat 3 times. Emma released and stood. 19 seconds. "Private Williams center mat." Williams was shaking, actually visibly shaking. He was the biggest of the crew at 230 pounds, but he'd just watched 3 of his friends get destroyed in under a minute of combined fighting time. Chemistry couldn't overcome what he was feeling, pure, primal fear. "I don't want to do this," Williams said as they approached each other. "Then forfeit," Emma replied quietly. "I can't. You know I can't." His hands were trembling as he raised them. Drayson's finished. Look behind you. Williams glanced back. The two suits had moved down to the floor level. One was talking on a phone. The other was photographing Lieutenant Drayson, whose face had gone from red to ashen gray. The whistle blew. Williams threw a wild, desperate punch. Emma stepped inside. It grabbed his extended arm and used his own momentum to flip him over her hip. The throw was called Ippon Seoi Nage in judo, one of the first techniques she'd ever learned from her father when she was 8 years old. Williams hit the mat hard. Emma transitioned immediately to a mounted position, raining down controlled strikes to his head until the referee pulled her off. Williams curled up, covering his face. I'm done. I'm done. Please. 22 seconds. The gymnasium had gone insane. Marines were screaming, throwing their covers in the air, pounding on the bleachers. Some were celebrating the spectacle. Others were celebrating the fact that Reeves and his crew were finally getting what they deserved. A few were just screaming because everyone else was screaming. Torres stood at the edge of the mat, arms crossed, a slight smile on his weathered face. He'd known. Somehow he'd known this was coming. Private Thompson center mat. Thompson was different. He didn't approach with fear or bravado. He came with respect and wariness. He'd actually trained in mixed martial arts at a legitimate gym. He understood what he was watching. This wasn't random violence. This was systematic application of superior technique and tactical intelligence. You're the real deal, Thompson said. I don't know where you trained, but it was somewhere serious. Somewhere most of us will never see. Emma said nothing. I'm not going to go easy on you just because you're small or because you've won 4 fights. I'm going to come at you with everything I've got. That respectful enough? That's exactly what I want, Emma replied. Thompson came in smart. He maintained distance, threw leg kicks to test her defense, feinted high, and attacked low. He was actually making her work. His technique was clean, his strategy sound. In a fair fight between equals, this might have been competitive. But they weren't equals. Emma let him think he was setting up his game plan, let him throw combinations that she slipped by millimeters, let him shoot for takedowns that she defended with minimal effort. She was teaching him a lesson that he'd carry for the rest of his life. There were levels to this game, and he wasn't anywhere close to the top. When she decided the lesson had gone on long enough, Emma closed the distance in a burst of speed that Thompson didn't see coming. She threw a combination jab, cross-hook uppercut that Master Chief Hernandez had drilled into her 10,000 times. Each punch landed exactly where it was supposed to. Thompson's guard collapsed like a house of cards. Emma grabbed him in a tie clinch, pulled his head down, and drove her knee into his midsection 3 times in rapid succession. Thompson's legs buckled. She released him and stepped back as he fell to his knees, gasping for air. 31 seconds. Enough! Commander Hawthorne's voice cut through the chaos. He walked onto the mat, the rear admiral beside him. Lieutenant Drayson, I think we've seen enough to complete Private Chen's evaluation. Outstanding work, Private. Return to formation. Sir? Emma came to attention. The lieutenant said 6 matches. I've only completed 5. Hawthorne's eyebrows rose. So did the admiral's. Drayson looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. That won't be necessary, Private. You've more than demonstrated. I disagree, Lieutenant. The rear admiral spoke for the first time. His voice had the kind of authority that made generals nervous. The private is correct. Your evaluation parameters specified 6 opponents. She's earned the right to complete the full assessment. He turned to face Drayson directly. Unless you'd like to explain to these federal investigators why you're changing the criteria mid-evaluation. The 2 suits moved closer. One of them held up a badge. Lieutenant Drayson, I'm Special Agent Morrison, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. We'd like to ask you some questions about certain pharmaceutical acquisitions made through your supply requisitions over the past 18 months. Drayson's face went from ashen to green. I don't know what you're... Save it for the interview room, Morrison gestured to his partner, who was already moving toward Drayson with handcuffs. "You're being detained for questioning regarding distribution of controlled substances to active duty personnel." The gymnasium erupted again. Marines were shouting questions. Drayson was trying to back away. The medical staff was still working on Reeves, who was starting to regain consciousness, but looked like he'd been hit by a truck. "Private Chen still has one match remaining." The Admiral's voice cut through the chaos like a ship's horn. "Who's her sixth opponent?" The question hung in the air. Every Marine in the building suddenly found somewhere else to look. Nobody wanted to be next. Not after what they'd just witnessed. "I'll do it." Torres stepped forward. The gymnasium went quiet again. Emma's eyes widened fractionally, the first real emotion she'd shown since the fighting began. "Master Gunny, that's not necessary. You wanted 6 matches. Here's your 6th. Torres walked onto the mat, moving with the careful precision of a man who'd learned to compensate for old injuries. "Besides, I've got 30 years in this corps. I need to know if the new generation can actually hang with the old guard." He said it lightly, but his eyes were serious. This wasn't about humiliation or revenge. This was about something else. Something Emma recognized from her time with the teams the Warriors need to know where he stood. They faced each other in the center of the mat. Torres had 4 inches and 60 pounds on her, plus 3 decades of experience in combat zones across 4 continents. But he was also 53 years old, with a rebuilt knee and chronic back pain from a helicopter crash in Fallujah. "I know what you are now," Torres said quietly as they touched gloves. "Made some more calls after our last conversation. Talked to a Master Chief who accidentally confirmed that someone matching your description spent 4 years doing things he legally couldn't discuss. So here's my question, Chen. Are you running from something or toward something?" The whistle blew before Emma could answer. Torres came forward with no wasted movement. His technique was different from everyone else, older, more refined, built on decades of actual combat rather than gym training. He threw a jab that Emma slipped, but the follow-up cross was already coming from an angle she hadn't anticipated. She blocked it, but felt the power behind it. Torres wasn't as strong as Reeves, but he knew exactly how to apply his strength for maximum effect. They circled each other, trading feints and probing strikes. Torres was reading her rhythm, looking for patterns. Emma adjusted, showing him different looks, different timings. This was the first real fight she'd had since leaving the teams, an opponent who could actually challenge her, make her think, force her to adapt. "You're holding back," Torres said, slipping her jab. "Same way you've been holding back for 8 weeks. Why?" Emma threw a combination that Torres parried. "You tell me. You're the one who's been watching." "I think you came here to hide." Torres caught her kick, swept her standing leg, but Emma rolled with the takedown and came up on her feet. "I think something happened in whatever classified world you came from, and you thought you could restart your career by coming through traditional channels. But you forgot something." He moved in with a clinch, using his weight to try to control her. Emma broke free with a technique that definitely wasn't in the Marine Corps manual. "What did I forget?" she asked. "You can't hide who you really are. It comes out. Always." Torres threw a spinning back fist that Emma ducked. "So stop pretending. Stop playing weak. The Corps needs warriors like you. God knows we've got enough pretenders already." Something inside Emma shifted. Some wall she'd built 8 months ago when she walked away from the teams. Some barrier she'd erected to keep the guilt and the pain locked away where it couldn't touch her. She stopped holding back. What happened next was 15 seconds of controlled violence that demonstrated the difference between excellent training and operator-level skill. Emma moved like water flowing around Torres's defenses, striking from angles that shouldn't exist, transitioning between techniques so smoothly that they appeared to be one continuous motion. Torres fought back with everything he had. 3 decades of experience compressed into desperate defense. But experience has limits, and age doesn't forgive. Emma slipped inside his guard, locked in a standing guillotine choke, and applied pressure. Torres tapped twice against her shoulder. Emma released immediately and stepped back. Torres bent forward, hands on his knees, breathing hard but smiling. "Outstanding Marine," he said between breaths. "That's what I wanted to see. That's who you really are." The gymnasium exploded with noise. Marines flooded onto the mat, some to celebrate Emma, others to check on their fallen comrades. The medical staff was overwhelmed. The NCIS agents had Drayson in handcuffs and were reading him his rights while he shouted about lawyers and wrongful arrest. Commander Hawthorne approached Emma with the rear admiral. Both men looked impressed and slightly shell-shocked. "Private First Class Emma Chen," Hawthorne began formally. "Or should I say former Petty Officer Second Class Chen, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, honorably discharged 8 months ago with classified service record." Every Marine within earshot went dead silent. "SEAL Team 6. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Sir," Emma came to attention, unsure what else to do. "At ease, Chen." The Admiral stepped forward. "Master Chief Petty Officer Hernandez sends his regards. He also told me to tell you, and I quote, 'Stop being a dumbass and get back in the fight.'" End quote. Emma's poker face finally cracked. A smile broke through. "That sounds like him, sir." "I have a question, Chen." The Admiral looked around at the 6 Marines she'd defeated, all of them now sitting or lying on the mat, in various states of consciousness and dignity. "Why did you go through with this? You could have revealed your background on day 1, demanded respect. Instead, you hid, endured harassment, documented everything, and waited. Why?" Emma looked at the assembled Marines. At Torres, who was still catching his breath. At the female Marines, who were now standing closer, looking at her with something like hope. At Reeves, who was conscious now and staring at her with pure shock. "Because respect that's demanded isn't real respect, sir. It's just fear with better manners." She gestured to the evidence that NCIS was collecting the photos Torres had provided her own documentation. "And because I wanted to make sure that when this all came down, nobody could claim I'd been given special treatment or that I hadn't earned my place here. I needed to be beyond reproach." The Admiral studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Master Chief Hernandez also said you left the teams after Kabul. Said you blamed yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Said you've been running ever since." Emma's smile faded. "Sir, with respect. He told me to tell you that Petty Officer Rodriguez's family doesn't blame you. They never did. And that Rodriguez's last words before he died were, 'Tell Chen she made the right call.' He saved those civilians because of your intel, Chen. He knew the risks, he accepted them, and he'd be proud of what you did here today." Something broke inside Emma. Some dam that had been holding back 8 months of guilt and grief and second-guessing. Tears ran down her face before she could stop them. She didn't sob or collapse. She just stood there, tears streaming, while the weight she'd been carrying finally started to lift. Torres handed her a towel. "For the record, Chen, I left that note in your footlocker. Wanted to see what you'd do with it. Wanted to know if you were a quitter or a fighter." Emma wiped her face. And you're one hell of a fighter, Marine." The NCIS agents escorted Drayson out of the gymnasium in handcuffs while 300 Marines watched in stunned silence. Emma stood at attention, tears still drying on her face, processing the Admiral's words about Rodriguez. 8 months of guilt didn't disappear in one conversation, but for the first time since Kabul, she could breathe without feeling like she was drowning. "Private Chen," the Admiral's voice pulled her back to the present. "Walk with me." They left the gymnasium through a side exit, Commander Hawthorne and Torres following behind. The California sun was brutal after the air-conditioned gym. Emma's hands were still wrapped in tape knuckles, slightly swollen from the impacts. "Master Chief Hernandez wasn't the only one who called me about you," the Admiral said as they walked. "I've had 3 senators, 2 congressmen, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps himself asking questions about a female recruit at Pendleton who might have classified special warfare background. You've made quite an impression, Chen. Problem is, nobody can figure out what you're doing here." "Trying to serve, sir?" "Bullshit." The Admiral stopped walking, turned to face her directly. "You already served. 4 years in the most elite unit in naval warfare. You could have re-enlisted with the teams. Could have transferred to any special operations unit in any branch. Instead, you discharged, disappeared for 8 months, then re-enlisted as a basic Marine recruit, using only your unclassified service record. That's not trying to serve. That's running away." Emma said nothing. What could she say? He was right. "Here's what I think happened," the Admiral continued. "I think you made a decision in Kabul that got a teammate killed. I think you've been punishing yourself ever since, trying to prove you can still be a good Marine by starting over from scratch. I think you believed that if you could just make it through basic training without anyone knowing who you really were, somehow that would make up for Rodriguez dying. Sir, I also think you're the most tactically brilliant operator I've encountered in 30 years of naval service, and you're wasting your talents playing games with Marines who don't know their ass from their elbow." The Admiral's expression softened slightly. "Chen, guilt is a luxury. Warriors don't get to indulge in it. We make hard calls, people die, and we keep moving because that's the job. Rodriguez understood that. Why don't you—" Emma felt something crack open in her chest. "Because I should have been the one, sir. I was support staff. He was the assaulter. I should have taken point on that building breach, but I insisted on going first because the intel was my responsibility. He died covering my mistake." "Your mistake was getting 12 civilians out alive," Hawthorne spoke up. "Your mistake was identifying the secondary IED that would have killed the entire team. Your mistake was making the call that saved 7 SEALs and a dozen Afghan families. My mistake was not dying instead of him." The words exploded out of Emma before she could stop them. "He had a wife, 2 kids, parents who are still alive. I've got nobody. It should have been me." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Torres broke it. "That's the dumbest thing I've heard in 3 decades, and I once watched a private try to cook ramen in a canteen cup over a campfire." He stepped closer to Emma. "You think Rodriguez would want you pissing away your life because he made the same choice any of us would make? You think his wife wants to know her husband died protecting someone who's too guilty to keep fighting? Master Gunny. His name's on the wall now, Chen. Classified location, classified operation, but he's on the wall with all the other heroes who paid the price. You want to honor that? Stop hiding. Stop pretending to be less than you are. Start using those skills to make sure fewer names get added to that wall." The Admiral nodded. "Which brings me to why I'm here. Special Agent Morrison." One of the NCIS agents appeared from around the corner holding a tablet. "Private Chen, what I'm about to show you is classified secret. Do you acknowledge?" "I acknowledge, sir." Morrison turned the tablet toward her. On the screen were surveillance photos of Lieutenant Drayson meeting with men Emma didn't recognize, shipping manifests, financial records, and then a photo that made her blood run cold, Drayson shaking hands with a man she definitely recognized, Commander Marcus Briggs, her former hand-to-hand combat instructor from SEAL Team 6. "No," Emma breathed. "That's not possible. Commander Briggs has been under investigation for 6 months, Morrison explained. "We believe he's been trafficking military-grade weapons and classified tactical information to cartel organizations in Mexico." Lieutenant Drayson was one of his distributors providing performance-enhancing drugs to active duty personnel in exchange for cash that Briggs uses to fund his operations. Emma's mind raced. Briggs had trained her, taught her everything she knew about close-quarters combat. He'd been hard, but fair, demanding, but respectful. He'd written her letter of recommendation when she'd applied for advanced training. He'd attended Rodriguez's memorial service and told her it wasn't her fault. "How deep does this go?" Emma asked. "That's what we need to find out," the Admiral replied. "Briggs has connections throughout Special Warfare Command. We don't know who else might be compromised. What we need is someone who can get close to him, someone he trusts, someone with the skills to gather evidence without getting caught." Emma understood before he finished speaking. "You want me to go undercover? We want you to do what you do best, survive in hostile territory and complete the mission." The Admiral's expression was granite hard. "Briggs requested you specifically for his new training rotation starting next month. Said he'd heard you'd re-enlisted and wanted to bring you on as a demonstration instructor. He doesn't know we're investigating him. He thinks you're just a former student looking for redemption." "He's using my guilt," Emma said quietly. "He knows I'm vulnerable, knows I'll jump at any chance to prove myself again." "Exactly, which makes you the perfect asset for this operation." Morrison pulled up more files on the tablet. "We've identified 3 other Marines at this base who are part of Drayson's distribution network. They're being arrested as we speak. But Briggs is the big fish. He's got connections to weapon traffickers supplying cartels in Sinaloa and Jalisco. If we can prove his involvement, we can roll up a network that's been killing Americans on both sides of the border." Emma looked at the photos again. Briggs smiling. Briggs shaking hands with men who probably had body counts in the hundreds. Briggs betraying everything the teams stood for. What's the mission profile? You join his training rotation as planned. Act like the guilt-ridden operator he expects. Document everything: meetings, phone calls, financial transactions. We'll have a secure communication protocol established before you make contact. The operation timeline is 6 months unless we get actionable intel sooner. And if he suspects I'm investigating him," the Admiral's expression didn't change, "then you use those skills you demonstrated in there, and you survive long enough for us to extract you. Briggs is a decorated SEAL commander with friends in high places. We need ironclad evidence before we move on him. That means you'll be exposed until we have what we need." Emma thought about Rodriguez, about his wife and kids, about all the other families who'd lost someone because of the weapons and drugs flowing through Briggs's network, about the Marines like Reeves who'd been turned into chemical-fueled monsters because of men like Drayson. "I'll do it." "You're sure?" Hawthorne asked. "Because once you're in, we can't pull you out without blowing the entire investigation. You'll be completely alone." "I've been alone before, sir. I know how it works." The Admiral extended his hand. Emma shook it, feeling the weight of what she'd just agreed to settle onto her shoulders like a ruck full of stones. "One more thing," Morrison said. "The 6 Marines you fought today. What do you want us to do about them?" Emma thought about Reeves and his crew, about how they'd been poisoned by Drayson's drugs and bad leadership, about how they'd made choices but hadn't made them in a vacuum. "They were victims too," she said slowly. "They need to be held accountable for the harassment, but they also need help. Rehabilitation, not just punishment. Especially Reeves. He's going to need serious medical attention to get off whatever Drayson was giving him." Torres nodded approvingly. "That's good leadership thinking, Chen. See the mission, but don't forget the people." "We'll make sure they get proper care," Morrison agreed. "And their testimony will help us build the case against Drayson and eventually Briggs. You may have just saved more than their careers today." The group started walking back toward the gymnasium. Emma's mind was already shifting into mission mode operational security communication protocols, cover story maintenance. This was familiar territory. Dangerous territory, but familiar. "By the way," Hawthorne said casually, What you did in there with Torres, that standing guillotine transition, that's not in any manual I've ever read. Emma almost smiled. Master Chief Hernandez taught me that one. Said it was something he picked up from a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor in Sao Paulo. Told me to never show it to anyone unless I was trying to make a point. What point were you making? That I'm done hiding who I am. They rounded the corner to find the entire company assembled outside the gymnasium. 300 Marines stood at attention as Emma approached. Torres barked an order, and they all saluted. Emma returned the salute confused. They wanted to show respect, Torres explained quietly. You just showed them what real courage looks like. Not the Hollywood bullshit. Not the fake bravado. Real courage facing discrimination, documenting injustice, and standing up when it mattered most. These Marines will remember today for the rest of their careers. Private First Class. Sarah Kim stepped forward from the formation. Ma'am, I know you're not an officer, but I just wanted to say thank you for showing us that we belong here. All of us. The other female Marines nodded. Some were crying. Emma understood. She'd broken through a barrier they'd all been fighting against. Not by complaining or demanding respect, but by being undeniably, unquestionably better than anyone else on that mat. You already belonged here, Emma told them. I just reminded everyone else of that fact. Martinez approached next, his arm in a sling from the arm bar. His face was bruised and his pride was clearly shattered, but he stood straight. I owe you an apology, Private Chen. A serious one. I was juiced up on Drayson's chemicals and angry at the world, and I took it out on you because you were an easy target. That's not who I want to be. That's not the Marine I signed up to become. Emma studied him, saw genuine remorse in his eyes, saw a man confronting his own failures. Apology accepted, Corporal. Now go get yourself clean and become the Marine you're supposed to be. One by one, the other four came forward. Jackson, Williams, Thompson, each offered apologies. Each admitted their failures. Emma accepted them all, but made it clear respect was a daily choice, not a one-time decision. Reeves came last. His nose was bandaged, his eyes were swollen, and he moved like every bone in his body hurt. He looked smaller somehow, like the fight had removed something essential that had been holding him upright. I don't expect you to forgive me, Reeves said quietly. What I did to you, what we all did, there's no excuse. I was hopped up on chemicals and convinced that might made right. You proved me wrong in 7 seconds, and I needed that. I needed someone to knock me on my ass and show me that I'd become the kind of person I joined the Marines to fight against. Emma looked at him for a long moment, saw the broken bully, saw the man underneath who'd lost his way. You want forgiveness, Reeves, earn it. Get clean. Help other Marines avoid the mistakes you made. Use your size and strength to protect people instead of intimidating them. Do that for the next 20 years, and maybe you'll forgive yourself. Reeves nodded, unable to speak. He saluted sloppily and returned to formation. The Admiral cleared his throat. Private Chen, you have 2 weeks before you report to Commander Briggs's training rotation. Use that time to complete your current training cycle and prepare for the mission ahead. Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres will be your primary contact point. Commander Hawthorne will handle the classified operational briefings. Special Agent Morrison will set up your secure communications protocol. Any questions? Emma had about 1,000 questions, but only one that mattered. Sir, when this is over, when we've brought down Briggs and his network, what happens to me? The Admiral smiled slightly. That depends on you, Chen. You can go back to pretending to be a basic Marine recruit, or you can accept what you really are and start acting like it. Your choice. He left with Hawthorne and Morrison taking their evidence and their plans and their expectations. Emma stood alone with Torres and 300 Marines who were looking at her completely differently than they had that morning. Hell of a day, Torres said. Yeah. You scared? Emma thought about Briggs, about going undercover, about putting herself in the path of a man who'd taught her how to kill efficiently and who'd now betrayed everything they'd both sworn to defend. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Torres started walking toward the barracks. Come on, you've got gear to prep and a cover story to memorize. Mission starts now. Emma followed her mind, already racing through operational scenarios. But before she could get far, Private Kim called out, Private Chen, can I ask you something? Emma stopped. Sure. How did you do it? How did you stay strong through all those weeks of harassment? How did you not break? Emma thought about Rodriguez, about Kabul, about 8 months of guilt and grief, and wondering if she'd ever be worth anything again, about the choice she'd made that morning to stop hiding and start fighting. I remembered why I joined in the first place, not for respect or glory or proving anything to anyone. I joined because there are people in this world who can't protect themselves, and someone has to stand between them and the darkness. Today I just reminded myself and everyone else that I'm one of those someones. Kim nodded, slowly absorbing the words. Also, Emma added, I had a really good teacher who taught me that size doesn't matter in a fight. Technique, timing, and mental toughness matter. Everything else is just noise. She walked away before Kim could ask more questions. Her hands were starting to hurt now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Her body was reminding her that she'd just fought 6 opponents in rapid succession, including a master gunnery sergeant with 3 decades of combat experience. But her mind was clear for the first time in 8 months. Rodriguez was gone. She couldn't change that, couldn't bring him back, couldn't undo the choice she'd made in Kabul. But she could honor his sacrifice by using the skills he'd died protecting. She could make sure his death meant something by taking down the corruption that was poisoning the core from within. She could stop running and start fighting. 2 weeks until she faced Briggs. 2 weeks to prepare for the most dangerous mission of her career. Emma smiled grimly. The cute recruit was gone. The operator was back. And this time she wasn't hiding anything. The 2 weeks passed like a fever dream. Emma completed her training cycle with perfect scores across every category, while simultaneously preparing for the most dangerous mission of her life. During the day, she was the model Marine, respectful, competent, unremarkable, except for that one incident everyone was still talking about. At night, she memorized operational protocols, studied Briggs' known associates, and practiced maintaining her cover story under interrogation scenarios that Torres ran her through until she could recite them in her sleep. He's going to test you, Torres warned during their final briefing session. They sat in a secure room that technically didn't exist, reviewing surveillance photos and communication protocols. Briggs didn't survive 20 years in special warfare by being stupid. He'll push buttons, ask questions, watch how you react. You need to be the broken operator he expects. I know how to play broken, Emma said quietly. I've had 8 months of practice. Torres looked at her sharply. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. Emma studied a photo of Briggs standing with Mexican nationals outside a warehouse in Tijuana. He looked older than she remembered. Harder. But the truth is, I don't have to pretend very hard. The guilt's real. The doubt's real. The feeling that I should have died instead of Rodriguez, that's all real. I'm just using it instead of letting it use me. That's a dangerous game, Chen. Good thing I'm good at dangerous games. The night before she was scheduled to report to Briggs's training facility, Emma received an unexpected visitor. Reeves knocked on her barracks door at 2200 hours, looking nervous and significantly thinner than he'd been 2 weeks ago. The drugs were working their way out of his system, leaving him hollowed out and shaky. Private Chen, got a minute? Emma stepped outside. What do you need, Reeves? He struggled with the words. I heard you're transferring out tomorrow. Special assignment. Nobody knows where. I wanted to say something before you left. You already apologized. This isn't an apology. Reeves pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This is a warning. When Drayson got arrested, NCIS tore his office apart. They found files, records, lists of everyone involved in his operation. My name was on there along with Martinez, Jackson, Williams, and Thompson. But there were other names too. Officers, senior NCOs, people way higher up the chain than Drayson. Emma's pulse quickened. What kind of names? I only saw one before the agents took everything. Commander Marcus Briggs, Naval Special Warfare Command. Reeves handed her the paper. I wrote down everything I could remember. Dates, locations, amounts. I don't know if it helps, but I figured you should know. Figured maybe that's why you're really transferring out. Emma unfolded the paper. Reeves had detailed 6 separate meetings between Drayson and Briggs over the past 18 months. Delivery schedules, payment amounts, even a reference to the Mexico arrangement that made her blood run cold. Why are you giving this to me? Because I think you're going after him. Reeves met her eyes. I think that whole thing in the gymnasium was about more than just putting us in our place. I think you were gathering evidence, building a case, and now you're going to finish what you started. That's a hell of an assumption. Yeah. Well, I was hopped up on chemicals that this bastard provided, and it nearly destroyed my career and my life. So if you are going after him, I want to help, even if it's just giving you information. Emma studied him, saw sincerity, saw a man trying to make amends the only way he knew how. If I were going after someone like Briggs, which I'm not confirming, what would you want me to know? Reeves relaxed slightly. He's paranoid, always has security with him, always checks for surveillance. The drugs he provides aren't regular steroids. They're military-grade performance enhancers that were developed for special operations forces. The kind of stuff that makes you stronger, faster, more aggressive, but also more reckless, more violent. He's turning Marines into weapons, then using them for God knows what. Anything else? Yeah, be careful. Briggs isn't just some corrupt officer running a side business. From what Drayson said, Briggs has connections to people who make cartel members look like choir boys. If he figures out you're investigating him, you won't just get court-martialed. You'll disappear. Emma pocketed the paper. Thanks for the warning, Reeves. Chen, for what it's worth, I'm glad you dropped me in that gymnasium. I needed someone to show me what a real warrior looks like. Someone who fights for something bigger than themselves. After he left, Emma added his information to her mission file and sent an encrypted message to Morrison. The NCIS agent's response came back in minutes. Good intel. Confirms our timeline. Be careful out there. The next morning, Emma drove through the gates of Naval Amphibious Base Coronado as the sun was rising over San Diego Bay. The base housed BUD-S training, the brutal selection course that created SEALs along with several specialized training facilities for advanced warfare tactics. Briggs ran his operation out of a facility officially designated as Advanced Combat Techniques Training, but everyone called it the Dungeon because it was located in a windowless concrete building that looked like a prison. Emma parked and grabbed her gear bag. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. This was just another mission, just another operation. The fact that it involved betraying a man who'd once taught her everything she knew about surviving combat that was just operational details. Private First Class Chen, reporting as ordered, sir. Briggs stood in the entrance to the dungeon, looking exactly as Emma remembered. 6'2", 195 pounds of lean muscle-gray hair, cut military short eyes that missed nothing. He'd been her instructor 4 years ago, had pushed her harder than any male trainee, had told her she had potential to be something special if she stopped letting her size define her limitations. Now he was a traitor selling weapons to cartels and poisoning Marines with illegal drugs. "Chen." Briggs smiled, and it looked genuine. "Damn good to see you again. Heard you'd re-enlisted. Heard some other interesting things too, but we'll get to that. Come on in. Let me show you around." The dungeon was exactly what Emma expected: training mats, equipment lockers, weapons racks, and a pervasive smell of sweat and determination. 6 other Marines were already inside going through warm-up drills. All male, all large, all moving with the kind of controlled aggression that suggested pharmaceutical enhancement. "These are my demonstration team," Briggs explained. "Best fighters I've ever trained. They help me teach advanced combat techniques to various special operations units. You're here because I need someone who can show these guerrillas that size isn't everything. Someone who can demonstrate proper technique and tactical thinking. That sound like something you can do?" "Yes, sir." "Good, because I've heard some rumors that you made quite an impression down at Pendleton. 6 Marines in one session, including Master Gunny Torres." Briggs laughed. "That's the Chen I remember. The one who refused to quit no matter how hard I pushed. The one who had something to prove." Emma maintained her cover. "I appreciate the opportunity, sir. After what happened in Kabul, I wasn't sure I'd ever get another chance to serve at this level." Briggs' expression softened. "Kabul. Rodriguez. I heard about that. Heard you've been beating yourself up about it for 8 months. That's part of why I requested you for this assignment. Figured you could use some purpose, some direction. Some reminder that you're still one of the best operators I've ever trained." The manipulation was so smooth, Emma almost didn't catch it. He was playing on her guilt, just like the Admiral had predicted, offering redemption through service to him, making her feel valued and understood so she'd be loyal and compliant. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Come on, let me introduce you to the team. Then we'll see if you've kept your skills sharp." The 6 Marines were named Peterson, Cruz, Williams, Michaels, Grant, and Foster. All of them were enlarged versions of the men Emma had fought at Pendleton, bigger, stronger, more enhanced. They looked at her with the same mixture of skepticism and dismissiveness she'd experienced before. "This is Chen," Briggs announced. "She'll be helping with advanced demonstrations. I know she doesn't look like much, but trust me, appearances can be deceiving." "Peterson. Why don't you help me show everyone what I mean?" Peterson was the biggest, standing 6'5" and probably weighing 250 pounds. He stepped onto the mat with obvious confidence. Briggs positioned them facing each other. "Chen, show Peterson what happens when someone relies too much on size." This was a test. Emma knew it immediately. Briggs wanted to see if she'd retained her skills, wanted to verify the rumors he'd heard, wanted to make sure she was still valuable as an asset. "Sir, I don't want to hurt. Peterson can handle it. Can't you, Peterson?" Peterson grinned. "Yes, sir, bring it on." Emma moved before he finished speaking. A combination she'd practiced 10,000 times jab to draw his guard high-level change to fake a takedown rising elbow strike that caught him under the jaw. Peterson's head snapped back. His legs wobbled. Emma swept his front leg and rode him to the ground, transitioning immediately to a mounted position. 3 seconds. "Excellent," Briggs clapped. "That's exactly what I wanted to see. Chen, you haven't lost a step. If anything, you're sharper than before. That guilt and anger you've been carrying, you've channeled it into something useful." Emma helped Peterson up. The big Marine looked stunned but impressed. Over the next 4 hours, Briggs ran Emma through demonstration after demonstration. Each time she adapted to her opponent's style and found ways to neutralize their size and strength advantages. Each time Briggs praised her technique and told the others to learn from her example. It would have been inspiring if Emma didn't know what he really was. During lunch break, Briggs pulled Emma aside. "I've got something special planned for this afternoon. Private training session, just you and me. Like old times. There are some advanced techniques I want to show you. Techniques I only teach to certain operators who can handle the responsibility. I'd be honored, sir. They went to a separate room that was soundproofed and had no windows. Emma's instincts screamed danger, but she kept her expression neutral. This was where Briggs would make his move, whatever that move turned out to be. I'm going to be straight with you, Chen. Briggs locked the door behind them. I know why you're really here. Emma's blood ran cold. Sir, you're here because you're trying to outrun Kabul, trying to prove you're still worth something after Rodriguez died, trying to convince yourself that you deserve to wear the uniform. He moved closer. I get it. I've been there. Lost teammates. Questioned every decision. Wondered if I was the problem. Emma relaxed slightly. He didn't know about the investigation. He thought she was just another guilt-ridden operator. Here's what I learned, Briggs continued. The guilt never goes away. The doubt never disappears. You just learn to use it, channel it, make it fuel instead of poison. He pulled out a small plastic container from his pocket. And sometimes you need a little help with that process. The container held pills, small blue, unmarked. What are those, sir? Performance enhancers, military grade, developed for special operations forces to increase reaction time strength and aggression management. Completely safe when used properly. I've been providing them to select operators for 3 years. They help you push past the mental blocks that hold you back. Emma stared at the pills. This was it. The proof Morrison needed. Briggs was about to offer her illegal drugs while on federal property with no witnesses. Sir, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about regulations and drug testing and consequences. But here's the truth. Chen, the best operators in the world, use enhancement. They just don't talk about it. SEALs, Delta Rangers, even some CIA paramilitary officers. Everyone knows. Everyone looks the other way. Because mission success matters more than following rules written by people who've never been in combat. Where do these come from? I have suppliers. People who understand that modern warfare requires modern solutions. Briggs opened the container. These pills will help you sleep better. Train harder. React faster. Most importantly, they'll quiet that voice in your head that keeps telling you Rodriguez's death was your fault. Emma had him. Right there, offering illegal substances to an active-duty Marine. Morrison would have enough for an arrest warrant based on this conversation alone. But Emma wanted more. Wanted the whole network. Wanted the suppliers and the distributors and everyone who'd been turning Marines into chemical-enhanced weapons. Can I think about it, sir? Briggs' expression hardened. I need to know you're committed, Chen. Need to know you're one of us. Because what I'm building here, it's bigger than just training. It's about creating the next generation of warriors. Warriors who aren't held back by outdated morality or bureaucratic bullshit. What do you mean, what you're building? Briggs smiled. Take the pills, Chen. Join the program. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. Emma reached for the container. Her fingers closed around it. Every instinct screamed to arrest him right here, right now. But she had a mission. Had to see this through. I'm in, sir. Briggs's smile widened. Outstanding. Welcome to the real war, Chen. The one most people don't even know is being fought. He unlocked the door and led her back to the main training area. Emma slipped the container into her pocket, her mind racing. She needed to get these pills to Morrison for analysis, needed to document everything Briggs had said, needed to... Her secure phone vibrated in her other pocket, a pattern that meant urgent message from NCIS. Sir, can I use the restroom? Make it quick. We've got afternoon training in 5 minutes. Emma locked herself in a bathroom stall and pulled out the phone. Morrison's message was brief and terrifying. Briggs knows. Extraction team en route. Get out now. Her heart hammered. How did he know she'd been perfect? Hadn't broken cover once. Unless Torres, the briefing sessions, the secure room that technically didn't exist. Someone had been watching. Someone had figured it out. Someone had told Briggs. Emma deleted the message and flushed the phone down the toilet. Can't leave evidence. Can't give them anything to trace. She checked the pills in her pocket, still there. Whatever happened next, at least Morrison would have physical evidence. She walked back into the training area, trying to look calm. Briggs stood in the center of the mat with all 6 of his enhanced Marines surrounding him. The door had been locked from inside. The windows were covered. Chen. Briggs's voice had lost all warmth. We need to talk about why an NCIS surveillance team is parked 3 blocks from this facility. We need to talk about why Commander Hawthorne has been making calls to SEAL Team 6, asking about your service record. We need to talk about why Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres suddenly has access to classified briefing facilities at Pendleton. Emma said nothing. Calculated distances. Exit points. Weapons available. 6 enhanced Marines plus Briggs. 7-to-1 odds. In a locked room. With no backup. She'd faced worse odds in Kabul. I trained you too well, Chen. That's my mistake. I taught you how to gather intelligence, how to maintain cover, how to survive in hostile territory. I just didn't think you'd use those skills against me. Briggs gestured to his team. Boys, show Private Chen what happens to traitors. The 6 Marines moved forward as one. Emma dropped into a fighting stance and smiled. Sir, you taught me one other thing. You taught me that guilt can be fuel, that anger can be focused, that the best operators are the ones who've lost everything and have nothing left to lose. She pulled the pill container out and threw it to the corner of the room, away from the fight. I've got nothing left to lose. Do they? Peterson came first, launching forward with chemically enhanced aggression that made him faster than any 250-pound man should be. Emma sidestepped, grabbed his extended arm, and used his momentum to send him crashing into Cruz. 2 down temporarily. Michaels attacked from her left, throwing a combination that would have decapitated a normal opponent. Emma slipped under his guard, drove her elbow into his floating rib, and followed with a knee to his liver that dropped him gasping to the mat. 3 left standing, plus Briggs watching from the corner. She's just one person, Briggs shouted. Overwhelm her. Grant and Foster came together, trying to trap her between them. Emma dropped low, swept Grant's leg, then exploded upward with a rising knee that caught Foster in the solar plexus. He folded like paper. Williams grabbed her from behind in a bear hug, lifting her off the ground. His enhanced strength was crushing her ribs. Emma drove her head backward into his nose, felt the cartilage crunch, then stomped on his instep with her heel. His grip loosened. She twisted, locked his arm, and threw him over her hip, using his own grip against him. 6 Marines down in 20 seconds. But they were getting up. The drugs made them resilient, harder to keep down, more aggressive as they took damage. Peterson was already charging again, blood streaming from his forehead, where he'd collided with Cruz. Emma grabbed a training knife from the equipment rack. Not real, but hard enough to make a point. Peterson hesitated. Come on, Emma said quietly. You've got chemicals. I've got training. Let's see which one matters more. Peterson roared and attacked. Emma became water flowing around his strikes, cutting angles he didn't know existed, hitting pressure points that dropped his guard. She drove the training knife into his thigh, where the femoral nerve cluster lived. Peterson's leg buckled. She swept him and drove the blunt weapon into his throat, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to make him choose between breathing and fighting. He chose breathing. Cruz and Michaels attacked together, more tactical now. They'd learned. Emma hadn't. She grabbed Michaels' incoming punch, redirected it into Cruz's face, then used the confusion to execute a double-leg takedown that sent both men crashing down. 2 quick strikes to nerve clusters, and they stopped moving. Grant came low, trying for a wrestling takedown. Emma sprawled, took his back, and locked in the same rear-naked choke she'd used on Thompson at Pendleton. Grant struggled for 15 seconds before going limp. Foster and Williams were the last 2 standing. They looked at each other, then at Emma, then at Briggs. "Don't look at him," Emma said. "Look at me. You're being used, poisoned, turned into weapons for his profit. You can stop now. You can choose to be Marines instead of criminals." "Finish her," Briggs commanded, "or I'll make sure you both end up in Leavenworth for possession." Williams hesitated. Foster didn't. He charged with a wild haymaker. Emma slipped it, grabbed his arm, and executed an armbar so fast that Foster screamed and tapped before his brain caught up to what was happening. Williams backed away, hands raised. "I'm done. I'm out. Whatever you're investigating, I'll testify. Just don't break my arm." "Smart choice," Emma said. Briggs pulled a pistol from his waistband. Nobody's testifying to anything. The gun changed everything. Emma was 10 feet away with no cover. 6 enhanced Marines were scattered across the mat in various states of consciousness. Briggs had the high ground and a clear line of fire. "You were always the best student I ever had," Briggs said, his voice almost sad. "But you were also the most naive. Did you really think NCIS could touch me? I've got 3 senators, a federal judge, and half of Naval Special Warfare Command in my pocket. Your investigation dies here, along with you." The door exploded inward. Torres came through, first weapon raised, followed by a tactical team in full gear. "Drop the weapon! Commander Federal agents, drop it now!" Briggs swung the pistol toward Torres. Emma moved without thinking, launching herself across the mat and hitting Briggs in a flying tackle that sent them both crashing into the wall. The pistol discharged the round, going wild. Emma grabbed Briggs' wrist, applied a wrist lock Master Chief Hernandez had taught her, and felt the bones grind together until the weapon clattered to the floor. "It's over," Emma said quietly. "The pills are evidence. Williams is a witness. NCIS has recordings of everything you said to me. You're done." Briggs looked up at her, and for just a moment she saw the instructor she'd once respected, the man who'd pushed her to be better, the warrior who'd taught her to survive. Then the moment passed, and she saw only the traitor. "Rodriguez died because of intelligence I provided," Briggs said suddenly. "The Taliban knew you were coming because I sold them your operation plan, sold it to a cartel contact who sold it to insurgents for weapons access. Your teammate died because I wanted cash for my retirement. So when you're lying awake at night feeling guilty, remember it was never your fault. It was always mine." The words hit Emma harder than any physical blow. 8 months of guilt. 8 months of believing she'd made the wrong call. 8 months of thinking Rodriguez died because of her decision. And it had been Briggs all along. Torres pulled Briggs to his feet, cuffed him, and handed him off to the tactical team. Then he approached Emma, who was still standing frozen in the middle of the mat. "You okay, Chen?" Emma couldn't speak, couldn't process. The guilt she'd been carrying wasn't hers. The weight she'd been dragging wasn't hers. Rodriguez's death wasn't her fault. "Chen," Torres gripped her shoulder. "Look at me. You did good. You got the confession. You got the evidence. You brought down a traitor who's been selling out American operators for years. Rodriguez would be proud." "He knew," Emma whispered. "Briggs knew we were coming. Rodriguez died protecting civilians because I made us breach that building, but the Taliban were waiting because Briggs told them we'd be there. I made the right tactical call. The mission was compromised from the start." "That's right. You made the right call. Always did. Now you can finally believe it." The tactical team secured the 6 enhanced Marines, called for medical assistance, and began processing the scene. Special Agent Morrison entered with Commander Hawthorne and the Rear Admiral. "Private Chen," Morrison said formally, "on behalf of NCIS and the Department of Defense, thank you for your service to this investigation. Commander Briggs will face charges of treason conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, weapons trafficking, and providing material support to terrorist organizations. Your testimony and the evidence you gathered will ensure he spends the rest of his life in federal prison." "How did he know I was investigating him?" Emma asked. Morrison grimaced. "We're still determining that. Someone in the chain of command tipped him off. We're conducting internal investigations at multiple levels. But Chen, you should know that your cover was solid. You did everything right. Someone else made a mistake, not you." The Admiral stepped forward. "Private First Class Chen, I'm recommending you for the Navy Cross for valor in the face of armed enemy combatants. You engaged 7 hostiles in close quarters combat while unarmed and secured a high-value target whose intelligence will save American lives for years to come." Emma barely heard him. Her mind was still processing Briggs's confession, still unwinding 8 months of self-blame and guilt, and thinking she was responsible for Rodriguez's death. "Sir, I need to visit someone." 3 days later, Emma stood at a door in suburban San Diego, her dress uniform pressed and perfect, her hands shaking slightly as she knocked. A woman answered, mid-30s, tired eyes, a toddler on her hip, and a young boy peeking from behind her legs. "Mrs. Rodriguez?" "Yes." "My name is Emma Chen. I served with your husband in Kabul. I was there when he died. I was wondering if I could talk to you for a few minutes." Mrs. Rodriguez studied her face, and something shifted in her expression. "You're the one he wrote about, the one he called the little warrior who never quit. Come in. Please." They sat in a living room filled with photos of Rodriguez in uniform, with his family receiving medals and commendations. Emma felt her throat tighten. "I came to tell you that I'm sorry," Emma began. "I'm sorry I made the call that put him in danger. I'm sorry I suggested we breach that building. I'm sorry he died protecting civilians because I—" "Stop." Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was gentle but firm. "Stop apologizing for my husband making the choice he trained his whole life to make. He didn't die because of your call. He died because terrorists murdered him. And before he died, he saved 12 people who would have been executed. That's who he was. That's what he believed in." She pulled out a worn journal from a drawer. "He wrote about you. Wrote about how you were the toughest person in your unit. How you never complained, never quit, never asked for special treatment. How you made everyone better just by refusing to accept anything less than excellence." She opened to a marked page. "Here, this is from 3 days before the mission." Emma took the journal with trembling hands and read, "Chen suggested we hit the secondary target tomorrow. Intel says there are civilians being held there. Higher-ups want us to wait. But Chen's right. By the time we get authorization, those people will be dead. I'm backing her play. If something goes wrong, I need someone to make sure she knows this was my choice. She's going to blame herself. Don't let her. She's too valuable to lose to guilt." The words blurred as tears filled Emma's eyes. He knew. He always knew. He trusted your judgment more than the brass did. He trusted you more than you trusted yourself. Mrs. Rodriguez took her hand. "So stop carrying his death like it's your burden. Start carrying his life like it's your inspiration. That's what he would want." 2 months later, Emma stood before a promotion board at Marine Corps headquarters in Quantico. The investigation into Briggs had uncovered a network that stretched across 3 continents, involved 12 cartel organizations, and had compromised 47 military operations over 5 years. Emma's testimony had been crucial in securing convictions against 17 co-conspirators, including 2 sitting congressmen and a federal judge. "Private First Class Chen," the board chairman began. "Your actions over the past 4 months have been extraordinary. However, this board has a problem. Your service record shows you as a basic Marine recruit. Your classified record shows you as a decorated SEAL Team support operative. Your recent actions show you as something entirely different, an operator with skills and judgment that exceed your rank and position. Emma stood at attention, uncertain where this was going. This board recommends immediate promotion to sergeant and assignment to Marine Special Operations Command as a close-quarters combat instructor. Further, this board recommends you for the Presidential Citizens Medal for exposing corruption that threatened national security. Do you accept these recommendations? I accept, sir. The chairman smiled. Outstanding. Because we've got 300 female recruits at Paris Island and Pendleton who need to learn that they belong in this corps. We've got male Marines who need to learn that size and strength don't mean shit without honor and integrity. And we've got an entire military culture that needs to understand what real courage looks like. You're going to teach them. 6 months after that, Sergeant Emma Chen stood in the same gymnasium at Pendleton, where she'd dropped 6 Marines and changed everything. But this time she was the instructor. Before her stood 60 recruits, male and female, large and small, confident and terrified. My name is Sergeant Chen, she began. Some of you have heard stories about me. Some of those stories are true. Some are exaggerated. Some are complete bullshit. What matters is not the stories. What matters is what you learn today. She gestured to 6 volunteers to step onto the mat, all large, all confident, all assuming they knew what was coming. These 6 Marines are about to demonstrate an important lesson. Size doesn't matter. Strength doesn't matter. What matters is technique, timing, and the mental toughness to keep fighting when everything tells you to quit. She dropped into a fighting stance. What matters is understanding that the most dangerous opponent is the one you underestimate. 3 minutes later, all 6 volunteers were on the mat in various states of defeat and enlightenment. The recruits sat in stunned silence, just like 300 Marines had done months before. Now, Emma continued, helping the last volunteer to his feet. Let me teach you how to do that. Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres watched from the sidelines, arms crossed, slight smile on his weathered face. Beside him stood Commander Hawthorne and Special Agent Morrison. Think she'll make a difference? Morrison asked. She already has, Torres replied. Every female recruit who walks through these gates now knows she belongs here. Every male recruit learns on day 1 that respect is earned through actions not given because of size. Every Marine in this corps knows that one small woman took down a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of command. That's the definition of making a difference. Hawthorne nodded. Master Chief Hernandez called me yesterday, asked if Chen would consider coming back to the teams once she finishes her current assignment. Said they need operators with her combination of skills and integrity. What did you tell him? I told him she's exactly where she needs to be, teaching the next generation, building something that will last long after we're all gone. On the mat, Emma was demonstrating how to defeat a larger opponent using leverage and timing. The recruits watched with rapt attention, not because she was small or female or had a dramatic backstory, but because she was exceptional. Because she'd earned the right to teach them through blood sweat and refusing to quit when every voice told her to give up. In the back of the gymnasium, private first class, Sarah Kim stood with the other female Marines from Emma's original company. They'd requested permission to observe the training session, and Torres had approved it. That's who we should be, Kim said quietly. Not just surviving in a system that doesn't want us, but changing the system so future generations don't have to fight the same battles. The other women nodded. Some were crying. Some were smiling. All of them understood they were witnessing history, not because Emma had defeated 6 Marines in a viral moment, but because she'd used that moment to create lasting change. Later that evening, Emma sat alone in her barracks, writing a letter to Rodriguez's children. She'd promised Mrs. Rodriguez she would tell them stories about their father. Real stories. true stories. Stories that would help them understand the man their father had been and the legacy he'd left behind. She wrote about courage and sacrifice, about making hard choices and living with consequences, about understanding that being a warrior meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves even when it cost everything. She wrote about how their father had saved her life more times than she could count, not by taking bullets for her, but by believing in her when she didn't believe in herself, by trusting her judgment when others questioned it, by showing her that true strength wasn't about size or power, but about character and integrity. When she finished the letter, she added one final paragraph. Your father once told me that the measure of a warrior isn't how many battles they win, but how many people they inspire to keep fighting. He inspired me. I hope one day I can inspire others the way he inspired me. I hope you'll both grow up understanding that his death wasn't a tragedy, it was a choice. A choice to be the kind of person who stands between the innocent and the darkness, no matter the cost. And she sealed the letter, addressed it, and placed it on her desk. Tomorrow she'd mail it. Tomorrow she'd teach 60 more recruits about technique and timing and mental toughness. Tomorrow she'd continue building the legacy that Rodriguez had started, and she'd refused to let die. But tonight, for the first time in 8 months, Emma Chen slept without guilt, without doubt, without the weight of carrying blame that was never hers to carry. She slept like a warrior who'd completed her mission and earned her rest. The cute recruit they'd mocked in drills had become the sergeant who changed the Marine Corps. The woman they'd dismissed as weak had exposed corruption at the highest levels of command. The operator who'd blamed herself for her teammate's death had learned that guilt was a choice, not a sentence. They'd laughed at her, underestimated her, tried to break her, and in doing so, they'd created exactly what the Corps needed most: a warrior who understood that real strength came from integrity. Courage came from purpose, and change came from refusing to accept that things had to stay the same just because they'd always been that way. Emma Chen had dropped 6 Marines in one SEAL move and proved that the most dangerous weapon in any fight wasn't the biggest or the strongest. It was the one nobody saw coming.